We've got a special guest today here in Sunday school class. We've got Mr. Dewey Wilemon. I'm going to give you just a little information on him as we get started. He is our speaker today. Mr. Dewey's 94 years old. He was born in a really large family. Including him, there were 8 boys and 3 girls. And they were raised in the New Side area on a farm. He's going to tell you about that here in just a minute. He's got his grandson Andrew with us today, special guest. And Mr. Dewey was married to his wife, Mrs. Zena, for nearly 68 and a half years. And she passed away in 2018. Mr. Dewey became a member here at Gaston in 2004, just to kind of let you know. And the neat thing that he and I share together, we were both ordained as deacons together in August of 2005. So I was probably one of the younger, maybe the youngest deacon at the time, and Mr. Dewey was the oldest deacon. So we were both ordained together and kind of have that special bond. But I want to introduce Mr. Dewey Wilemon that's going to speak to us today. It's yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Folks, it's good to be here, and I want to tell you for sure that I'm not a good speaker. And Andrew, I wish you'd read one verse for me that is going to kind of explain the way I am.
It comes out of Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, and it says, "And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto my servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue."
Amen. All right, so I was born and around New Site, come up on the farm, that's all I ever knew, and had the first child in my family was a girl, then 3 boys, then another girl. And so anyway, that was kind of the beginning of our life, and work. You were the first to work. Now, I tell people, I believe I come out of my mother's womb working, and that's all I ever knew, you know. And farm, hoe, pick cotton. That time we had 2 things that we had to do. In our work, at this time, the school would let you out a week to make a crop and a week to gather it. So that week, one of them was for us to cut our firewood. The next week was to cut our stove wood. Now we had to cut and burst stove wood and all that kind of stuff, kind of small, you know. Now the firewood, we always got up enough. Daddy used to say, boys, we can't bring out a shirt tail full when it gets cold. We're going to get our wood in. I never had to go to the woods and cut wood when there's snow on the ground. And you'd see people all in the roundabout in the country that had to do that. So we always had our up. My daddy, he was like myself. He didn't get a lot of education, but he knew how to work and how to handle things. And especially all these boys and girls. Now, I'll tell you what, he knew what a razor strap was. And when I began courting a little, back in our times, 12 o'clock at night, when we got to go to Boomville, and at 12 o'clock at night, we were supposed to be in. And when I started courting, if there's any later than that, I better call him and let him know everything was all right. So, they were pretty tight on us, but you know something? To this day, I thank them for it now, because they were good to us. Now, we didn't have much chance to go to church, because we had to go in a wagon and mules if it's any ways off. Now, we went to our little churches where we could walk, you know. Our mules, he would not let us ride them on Sunday. He said, boys, they work just like you have all the week. They need rest and get out and graze for a while. So now that's kind of the way I come up. And getting back to the boys, I'll have to tell you this. I had two brothers. I've told Kevin this time and again. I had one of the twins and the baby brother that loved pinto beans. Now, I'll tell you what, I believe they'd eat them for breakfast. We had service stations, and we had a man that traded with us who was in the grocery business, and he'd buy them 50 pounds at a time. They'd split those pinto beans, you know, and eat them twice a day. Now, one of the brothers had a certain pure lard. That's all we knew. We was raised, they say lard will kill you. I'll tell you what, I've eaten it all my life, so it has about killed me. Anyway, he'd smell of that lard. Now, I don't care where he was at, he was going to smell that lard. If it wasn't a certain kind, he wouldn't eat them. Now, it had to be that way. And he's not better than this day, and he's still the same this day. His wife worked at the doctor's office, and she told the doctor how it was about he ate the pinto beans and fried potatoes. So the doctor examined him good. Of course, his wife had told him all of this. So he said, "Donald, what do you eat?" He said, "Pinto beans and fried potatoes." "Boy, that's good." He said, "What do you eat?" He said, "Fried potatoes and pinto beans and cornbread." Now, folks, we had cornbread twice a day, and breakfast if you wanted it. And my mother would fix them old big biscuits, and almighty near the saucer size. So you eat 4 or 5 of those, and sorghum molasses, and that butter mixed up in it, you know. And most of the time, our hogs. Now, I don't know what beef was till I went to Memphis. And but we would raise plenty pork. We had that most of the year. We'd save our good hams when we was working the hardest. And of course, that could have been any time, but anyway, that's what we said. And but you eat that masaga molasses and that good ham meat, and of course, we had the red-eye gravy and all that kind of stuff, plenty eggs and plenty biscuits. And the stove was so wide, we had a slide-out thing that she'd put her pans on, and it would cover that stove with biscuits. And we had a table that we made that was about 8 foot long, and a table on each side for you to sit on. So that's kind of the way I grew up and worked. We milked cows, and times was tough. And we didn't have many cows, 4 or 5, just enough. We shipped about 10 gallons of milk a day. And so no refrigerator or nothing like that. And we learned at our well, it had a box caving in it, and the dirt had kind of slipped off against it. So we learned to let our milk down on that side, you know, to kind of cool it. And it was very good. That cornbread milk mix, we ate a lot of it. So when we got through eating, we'd rest about 30 minutes, and we was up and gone. Now, it's pretty well from sun up to sundown. We didn't know, 12 hours a day was about what we worked. And every now and then, it was usually 6 days a week when we was in our farming. And if we got off it'd be Saturday at 12. So go over to Livingston, had a school bus, and he'd carry us to Boonville on Saturday night. And Now, folks, it was this tough, believe it or not. I'm beginning to court a little. My daddy would give me 50 cents. If that's all he had, Mama would gather up a bunch of eggs and stuff. We'd get the other brother would take those to Grover Leviston store and sell them to get his 50 or 60 cents. And we never went hungry. We had plenty to eat. And I tell people, we never stuck a tomato to my knowings. But we had an acre of them. I mean, if 2 or 3 rotted, well, what so? And then we'd wind up, my mother and daddy would on that 7-quart cooker. I don't know if you remember what that is, but it was 7 quarts, and it would blow up. It had a pop-off valve on it if you done it too fast. But anyway, you'd cook those things for so long, then you'd take it off, and it had to cool off so long, see? Then they'd go right back at it, another 7 quarts. I bet you we'd put up 100 quarts a year. And I'll never forget this. We had pickled peaches. Now, it ain't nothing I love better than a pickled peach, and it's a regular pickled peach. It's so good. And so one time, we had a storm house where we was at. And a lot of that fruit stuff was in there for protection. And one day it rained a little, and a couple of my brothers went in there, and we saw that gallon of peaches. Well, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so we opened those and ate about half of them and put it back. It went on for about a week or 2, and Mama went in there and caught that. All right, she said, boys, come here. Who ate my canned peaches? I said, he did. Well, she said, that's good. But he said, if you was in there, you ate them too. So I'm going to whip them both. So we got a good whipping for that. And let me tell you, my mother was good size, and she would whip faster than my daddy. When my daddy put it on, you remembered it. And I'm telling you, you'd have to go out a lot of time and cut your own switch. And it'd be stripes on our back. Now, you can believe that. Well, today, they'd be put in jail. It ain't no doubt about it. And to my knowings, that's kind of what's wrong with today. You raise children, I've always said, when a baby is born, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, when that baby is born, Mama can start talking to it, and you'll see them little eyes move. Now, Daddy may go over and say something to it, and it don't pay him a lot of attention for a while. But you raise one from the time they come into this world. And take a minute and talk. That don't get it with some. Now, some, it was that way with our family. Some would listen, and some of them had to have that strap put on him. And they were good at that, so I don't regret one thing. My mother and daddy, we had the greatest. Now, they were just as good as they could be, but they were just strict and wanted you just do what they say and you're all right. So,
Mr. Dewey, tell us about service station in Memphis. Tell us a little bit about that with your brothers.
Well, my first job was on the Memphis Fire Department. I stayed there about 5.5 years, and I had 2 brothers. The 2 older brothers came to Memphis. In Elton, we went together up there to get a job in fall of 48. And he got a job working, and I put in applications, and believe it or not, he managed, you couldn't hardly find a place to live up there then. It just might near impossible. But he ran into a lieutenant on the fire department. It had 2 rooms. So Elton rented those, and that's where he was living when he came home. And he came home on a Christmas. So I told Dad, I said, Dad, I put in an application, and this fella, he with the fire department, he had to have 3 people, to recommend him. He said, I've got those, and I'm not hardly 18 years old now. Let me tell you, I had to fib a little. He said, you're 18, aren't you? I said, no. He said, are you 18? I said, yeah. So we got out and we got those and left those. So when he come in, we decided it'd be a good time to go back, and I went back with him. And folks, I'll tell you what, we hadn't walked in the house over an hour, so the Memphis Fire Department called me to come first work first year. And I went to work for $160 a month, and I tell you what, I thought I was rich. Now, I'm telling you what, I strutted my stuff. And then my wife and I could go to the grocery store, and about $10, $12 worth of groceries would last us a week. Now, back to the service stations. These 2 brothers came, and the reason I left the fire department, I wound up getting me a service station. I started out on Lamar. They were at 5th and Chelsea, and I'm telling you, for a service station, they were just doing a tremendous business, selling a lot of tires, just doing well, better than I was doing. So they talked me in to get one, and I started out by myself on Lamar. So I was out there about 2 years, and I guess y'all remember the Pure Oil Company. We were with Texaco then. So Pure Oil Company, about a short 2 blocks away, had bought a piece of property down there and wanted us to take it. We ain't got no money. They said, Pure Oil has got plenty of it, and y'all can get it. So we borrowed $20,000. Now, we had enough to stock it, enough to fill our tanks with gas, and we had a little money, but we didn't want them to know it. So anyway, that worked out good, but we wondered in that, leaving Texaco, a lot of people love Texaco. But they went down there, and how much of that business we could carry with them, and I'll guarantee they carried 95%. I don't take no credit to that at all, because they were there and had built the business, and we just opened up busy and got busier. So it was good to us. Now, all the brothers but one worked in some way for us, because we had the 2 places then. We had bought a place at 3rd and Chelsea, and had a 4-bay up there and a big garage on the side. We had a truck rack and a lift on it. We serviced a lot of trucks, and everything went well there, so it was going well. And I lived in South Memphis, and this Texaco place come up, and it happened so I had seen it when it was a going thing. Now, I guess it was the best in Memphis, but they had sold it to 2 people, if you remember, Slumber Products. It's Sealy now, and it just went down. The people they had, they wasn't there with it none. It went down. It was filthy and dirty, but we bought it, and I told them, I said, now, men, y'all know the people. I'd love you to stay with me. But I said, you can get ready to go to work. We're going to clean this place up. And when we do and get it clean, after we serve the people in the morning, I'm going to take me a little stuff and go out and knock on doors and talk to people in these businesses. Now, it was called Truck City. It was just trucks all over the place. So anyway, that's the way we got started.
Tell them the hours that y'all were open. 7 days a week, 24 hours.
Oh, yes,
a day.
sir. Yeah.
They never closed.
At the time, until the gas shortage, we worked 24 hours a day. We just had one man at the time. Then this old color fella retired, and we put him on. Now, I hate to tell you this, but we had a night man was tough as nails. He carried his .38 in his pocket at night, And one afternoon, and this was before dark, we had just gone home. So these two fellows pulled in there, and they had done this before. They pulled in, gassed up, and drove off. And he said, he told this colored man, he said, this is the same folks. They come in again to fill up. Now, he said, just stay out of the way. So he went to him, could I fill it up, please? Yeah. So he went around there and he seen him turn the key on. He said, wait a minute. Don't you move, because if you do, I'm going to shoot the tires off of it. Or more. He didn't like that. He got out. He said, let me tell you something. Don't put a foot on the ground. I'm going to drop you. He got out and he shot him. Thank goodness he didn't kill him. But folks, we got one call on that. I told him, I said, the policemen and stuff knew us, and they'd come around there and give him, bullets and so on. I said, Marvin, they'll do that, but son, they won't go to jail with you. You got to keep that pistol in your pocket. Well, he said, I will, but I'm going to protect myself. And I can show you a picture. I've got it at home, where one time he was held up. He snapped that pistol, and it didn't go off. And so they took his money and left. Then he went up to a colored restaurant early in the morning and got him a sandwich or something and give him ever what it took, $2 or $3 to get his sandwich that had blood on it. The man said, what's wrong? Have you been to Wilemon Brothers? Is this Wilemon Brothers' money? He said, yes, it is. So anyway, we got most of our money back, and it did. It had blood on it, But police come out and all this kind of stuff. So
we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. I want you to tell the story about Andrew while we kind of finish it up.
Oh, Lord, listen. Andrew, my oldest son, and his wife separated, had 3 kids, lived together 27 or 8 years, and divorced. Well, now I've got to tell you this. This woman was a fine lady at one time. We went up Dixon, Tennessee, checked on her. She had been a fine lady. These people thought the world of her. Said she got on dope, and when she did, she was in and out of Nashville jail 24 times. How my brother stood this, now he's an educated man, retired from county with the city of Memphis, and he lived with me for about a year. And I know then he wasn't on no drugs for the year. But one day he asked me, he said, Dad, what would you think about me getting me an apartment? I said, son, you with old people all the time, I wouldn't. I said, it would be fine. I think it's the thing to do. Just keep yourself straight. But anyway, he got out there and took up with this woman. So they wind up having Andrew, and I don't know, he might have been 6 weeks old, but one day they called me. He did. He said, Dad, would y'all like to keep Andrew a day or two? I said, well, Lord, yeah, bring him on. Because at that time I had retired. I retired early. So he came, and he said, call when you get ready for him to come home. Well, I didn't call. Well, they didn't come. So it rocked on, and I wanted to, what do you call it? I wanted to adopt him.
How old were you, Mr. Wilemon, when
70, about 70 years old. And I can tell you now, it's a little harder to raise them at 70 than it is at 25. But anyway, they didn't give me one bit of trouble. Gene Gifford and I went to Corinth, seen the lawyer. He read the thing, asked questions. And so we got him adopted. And Lord, let me tell you, I wondered why I've had a lot of sickness, and through him, from his life. And but it has absolutely been a blessing, and I know that's why the Lord left. He had something for me, and this is it. And it's that way today, because he's just as good as he can be. He's 23 years old, and if he's been out with a girl to this day, I don't know it. and I tell him now, I said, I'm ready when you get ready. But I said, you got plenty of time, pick you one out, because this is supposed to be something to death do we part, you know. So I'm hoping that he can find one. He can cook. He's a good cook. He washes. Now, I try to do a little ironing. Let me tell you about that. When I started courting with my wife, I'd have a white shirt on and my overalls. I love overalls to this day. When I'm out working, you'll see me with overalls on. So I went down to see her one night. She just lived a few blocks away from me. And I went down. She said, I told you last Saturday night, if you come after me next Saturday night, I wasn't going with you. I said, well, honey, goodbye. I'll see you next Saturday night with them on. So I didn't have no more trouble out of that. And I had a great wife. And I don't know how she put up with me, but she did, and she was a good one and one of the best. And miss her so much. She's been gone now 5 years, and I tell you what, you just don't know till you've lost one how you miss her. So,
Mr. Wilemon, we're kind of finishing up here. If you could give any advice to this class of younger people that are younger than you, what would be your advice for them?
Well, number one, try to raise up right, know the Lord, and work hard, try to get a good education and a good job where you won't have to go through a lot of this stuff like we did. Because now I'm going to tell you, it gets hot out there hoeing. This weather right here don't bother me right now much. But now when you out there, you got a straw hat on and you hoeing and it's not a tree inside when you get hot. But by my mules and so on right here, my daddy never did plow those mules. He told me to cool them because he knew I'd plow them to death. I could walk them to death. And I've laid down beside of my mules, cooling a little myself, right in the shade of them, right out in that hot sun. So it was just that way. So we didn't know no better, but now let me tell you, there wasn't many people that wasn't in the same boat we was in, you know. We lived a good life. Other than that, plenty to eat, such as it was, and so on. What else, Kevin?
Just any advice for us, and what about going to church and being faithful to the Lord? Well,
that's what I tell people. Now, folks, I was 36 years old before I joined the church. Back then, at my service station, people would gather in on Saturday and Sunday for the car to be serviced and washed, and you know. Now, we washed them, let me tell you. When we washed one, $1.50. And same way on your lube and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I had this preacher that traded with me. And he come on a Saturday for his car to be serviced and washed. So he said, he watched me working and so on. He said, Mr. Wilemon, let me ask you something. Now, my brother was his pastor, and he lived out there and traded with me. He said, why aren't you a Christian? I said, well, Brother Martin, I'm not fit right now. I said, I'm kind of bad to use bad language, but I don't do it around my children and stuff like that. He said, well, what is that telling you? I said, well, I don't know. I know I shouldn't do it. He said, it's ignorance. That's exactly the way he put it. You know, I never forgot that. And I tell them, that's when I got rich, when I got to know the Lord. So I'm ready. When time comes, I know the Lord. And that's where I'm going.
Amen. Amen. Would y'all give Mr. Wilemon a hand? We appreciate you. We appreciate you coming today, Mr. Wilemon, and we all love you, and you mean a lot to us, and just thank you very much.
Well, Kevin, all the people here, I don't know all of you, but I have a love for you, I'll tell you that. So God bless and thank you for letting me come and tell you some of my story.
Thank you very much. Thank you.